My daughter-in-law burned my $2.5 million lottery check because I refused to share with my son, but here's the twist. My name is Agnes M. Jones. I'm 68 years old, a retired postal worker, and up until a few months ago, I was living in the guest room of the house I used to own. My son and his wife called it helping out. I called it surviving. Before we get into it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. I never planned to buy that lottery ticket. I don't usually waste my money on that sort of thing. But that Tuesday, after our knitting group at the community center, I stopped at the gas station down the street. I needed milk, and my knees were aching too much to stand in line at the grocery store. As I paid for the milk, I saw the Powerball sign. The numbers were so big, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. $2.5 million jackpot. It read. I had an extra $2 in change, so I said, "Go ahead, add a ticket." The cashier smiled, like he always does, and handed it to me. I tucked it into my purse behind a coupon I never used and forgot about it for 2 days. I remembered it Thursday night when I was going through my receipts. My son Fred had asked for help with the electric bill again, and I was counting coins. That's when I saw it, that little slip of paper with the red Powerball logo. I pulled out my phone and checked the winning numbers. I thought I'd maybe match one number if I was lucky. First number matched. Then the second. I sat down. By the time I got to the last number, I couldn't breathe. I checked again and again. Then I pulled out my old magnifier to make sure I wasn't seeing things. But it was real. Every number matched. All 6. I had just won $2.5 million. I didn't scream. I didn't jump up and down. I just sat there. Then I got up real slow, like my body was scared to believe what my brain already knew. I put the ticket in a plastic sandwich bag, the kind I used for buttons and thread. Then I tucked that inside my Bible, the one I keep in my nightstand. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking, what now? The next morning, I called the lottery office. I followed every instruction they gave me. They asked me to come in person to verify everything. I made an appointment and caught the bus to their office the next day. The whole place felt like a dream. They scanned my ticket, checked my ID, and then smiled. "Congratulations, Ms. Jones," the woman said. "You're the sole winner." I nodded, like I was hearing someone else's story. They gave me a thick packet of paperwork and explained my options. I could take the full amount in small payments over the next 20 years, or a smaller lump sum right away. I chose the lump sum. After taxes, that came out to about $1.4 million. That was still more money than I'd ever seen in my life. They warned me to keep the news quiet. Don't rush to tell people. One of the men said, "Things can get messy. Get a financial advisor first. Protect yourself." I took their advice. I didn't tell Fred. I didn't tell Helen. I didn't even tell my sister in Arizona. Instead, I rode the bus home in silence, the papers in my lap, my heart beating like it might pop right out of my chest. The next day, I met with a lawyer and a financial planner. I told them I needed to protect myself and asked them to explain things like I was 10 years old. They did. No judgment, no pressure, just clear advice. They helped me open a new account in a different bank under a new trust name. Everything was protected and insured. I moved slow, but I moved smart. In the following weeks, I didn't change anything about my life. I still ate oatmeal every morning. I still took my walks. I still lived in the tiny guest room of my old house and smiled when Helen made snide remarks. They had no idea, and that's how I wanted it. One morning, about 3 weeks later, I logged into the bank account I'd set up. There it was, $1,402,356 $1.72. I stared at that number like it wasn't real. I leaned in close, blinked a few times, and smiled. Then I whispered to myself, they'll never believe this. And they didn't. Not for a long while. But soon enough, everything changed. And not the way anyone expected. Fred is my only child. I raised him on my own after his father left when he was 5. We didn't have much, but I worked hard to give him a stable home. I delivered mail in the cold, in the heat, on holidays, and even with a bad hip. Everything I had went to keeping a roof over his head and food on the table. When he got older and started his own family, I thought maybe things would shift. That maybe all that work, all that love, would turn into something good. I was wrong. Fred married Helen when he was 27. She came from a loud family that always had something to say. From day one, she made it clear I wasn't really part of theirs. She said things like, we're building our life now, and Fred has to put me first. I understood. That's marriage. But the way she said it, there was always a sharp edge to it. Years ago, when I was thinking about retirement, Fred came to me with an idea. Sell the house and move in with us, Mom. He said, we'll take care of you. He sounded sincere, and I wanted to believe him. I was tired. My knees were shot from all those years on the job, and the idea of someone else taking care of things was comforting. So I signed over my house. I didn't sell it. I gave it to him. Thought it would be an early inheritance. I figured it would be simpler that way. No lawyers later, no arguments. That was the start of everything changing. They moved in and made the place their own, which was fine. But little by little, I started to feel like a guest in the home I'd cleaned, painted, and paid off. They stuck me in the back room, called it the Granny Suite, but it was really a glorified storage space. No closet, no windows that opened, no lock on the door. Then came the rent. I mean, it's only fair, Helen said one evening while pouring herself a glass of wine. We have bills too. Fred nodded. You're still getting your retirement checks, Mom. Just chip in a little. At first, it was $50. Then it turned into $200. Eventually, they asked for $350 a month. For a room I used to walk through in my own house. I kept paying it. I didn't want to fight. I told myself it was temporary. Helen never hid how she felt about me. She'd roll her eyes when I asked simple questions. She made faces behind my back when I talked too long at dinner. Once, I heard her on the phone with her sister saying, she just takes up space. She doesn't do anything. I cooked. I cleaned. I folded laundry when they left it in the dryer. I walked their dog when it rained. But none of it mattered. Every time I tried to set a boundary, Helen pushed back. Fred followed her lead. He'd say things like, we didn't have to let you live here, or you'd be out on the street if it wasn't for us. He said that to my face. The same face that stayed up nights when he had the flu, that walked to work when the car broke down, just so he could have lunch money. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I swallowed it. It hurt, though, worse than anything I'd ever felt. I never asked for much, just a little respect, some kindness, maybe a thank you now, and then, but that house felt smaller every week. Not because of the size, but because of how invisible I'd become inside it. So I started saving. Quietly, I opened a second checking account they didn't know about. I stashed $20, $30 here and there. Birthday money, odd cash gifts from old friends, even grocery refunds when I used coupons. It added up. Slowly, but it did. I told myself I'd move one day. Just needed enough for a deposit and first month's rent. I didn't want to depend on them. Not anymore. Then the lottery happened. When I saw that money hit my account, I didn't think about vacations or fancy cars. I thought about freedom. The first real breath I took in years came that day. I looked around the room I was stuck in and said, out loud, they don't deserve a penny. Not Fred, not Helen. They hadn't helped me when I needed them. They treated me like a bill to pay instead of a person who raised them. So I made a promise to myself that night. They won't see a dime. Not after the way they've treated me. And I meant it. After the check cleared, and I got my financial advisor lined up, I knew what I had to do next. I couldn't stay in that house. Not another month. I wanted peace. I wanted sunlight through clean windows, and to hear myself think without Helen's voice ringing through the walls. So one Tuesday morning, while Fred and Helen were both at work, I took the 9:10 bus to Santa Fe. I didn't tell a soul where I was going. I'd done my research weeks earlier, found a quiet senior housing community just off the highway. Nothing fancy, but clean, safe, and calm. Each unit had its own little patio and garden space. The lady at the front desk, Millie, was warm and direct. She walked me through a tour, like I was already home. The place smelled like lemons and fresh bread. I saw a woman my age painting on her porch. Another one was watering potted plants. I didn't hesitate. I'll take it, I said when we stepped inside the last unit on the list. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, decent closet, and a back patio that looked out on the mountains. Millie smiled. We'll need a deposit to hold it. I pulled out my checkbook, the one tied to my new account, and wrote the deposit on the spot. No one would know. Not yet. I rode the bus back home with a quiet calm in my chest. For the first time in years, I had something of my own again. That night, I logged into my bank account and transferred a small sum from my savings to a local account I used for everyday expenses. I didn't want to raise red flags by moving too much at once. I did the same every few days, just enough to look normal, but steady enough to build up what I needed for the move. I opened a P.O. box in Santa Fe and started redirecting my important mail. Insurance, pension statements, anything with my name on it that mattered. Next, I went to the dollar store and picked up 3 big plastic bins. I told Helen I was organizing old photo albums. She rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. I smiled. Each day after that, while they were both gone, I packed a little at a time. 1 drawer, a few shirts, books, my sewing machine. I wrapped my dishes in newspaper and labeled the boxes in pencil. I didn't want anything too noticeable. On the outside, nothing changed. I still made coffee in the mornings, still folded the laundry, still answered, fine, when Fred asked how I was. But inside, I was already gone. One evening, I was walking past the kitchen and heard Helen on the phone with her sister. She's been acting weird, she said, moving stuff around, whispering on calls. Bet she's hiding something. I froze in place. My heart didn't even skip. I just listened. Fred's voice came from the other room. She's old. Just let her be. I kept walking like I hadn't heard a thing. Once I got back to my room, I closed the door and chuckled to myself. Let's hope you keep thinking that, I whispered. I had 2 more weeks before I could move into the new place. Every day felt like a quiet countdown. Yvette, my friend from church, offered to help me on moving day. I told her everything except the lottery part. I just said I needed out and finally had the means to do it. She didn't ask questions. She just said, say the word. I booked a moving, then using cash, signed the final paperwork with Millie, and put in my change of address forms at the post office like any other customer. The week before the move, I took down the old photo of Fred from the living room, the one where he's smiling in his graduation cap. It used to make me proud. Now, it just made me tired. I wrapped it in bubble wrap and packed it at the bottom of a box marked miscellaneous. I didn't hate my son, but I didn't trust him anymore. That's the part no one tells you about growing older. Sometimes the people you raised turn out to be strangers. I had 3 days left in that house. 3 days until I walked out for good. Helen was watching me closer now. I could feel her eyes tracking my movements. She didn't say much, just stared. Fred barely noticed. He was too busy with his job and his phone. That was fine by me. The less they saw, the better. The last night before the move, I sat on the patio and looked out at the yard. The garden I planted had gone dry. No one watered it anymore. It didn't make me sad. It made me sure. That house wasn't mine anymore. Hasn't been for years. And now, finally, I was ready to let it go. Sunday dinners at Fred and Helen's had become more routine than meaningful. We'd sit around the same table, eat whatever Helen picked up from the store, and pretend we were some kind of happy family. I never looked forward to it, but I kept going, partly out of habit, partly because I didn't want to give them more reasons to talk behind my back. This particular Sunday, the timing felt right. I had everything in place, my new home, my bank accounts, my plan. So when dessert hit the table, store-bought peach pie with too much crust, I cleared my throat. "I have some news," I said, keeping my voice steady. Fred looked up from his plate. "What's going on?" Helen didn't even look at me. She was on her phone, probably scrolling through pictures of things she couldn't afford. "I won the lottery," I said. Fred blinked. "Wait, what?" Helen put down her fork. "Come again." I nodded. "I bought a ticket a few weeks ago. Turns out it was the winning one. $2.5 million. Fred dropped his fork onto his plate. Helen sat frozen, staring at me like I'd just grown wings. Then she smirked. "So, when do we talk about our share?" I kept my hands in my lap. "Calm. There is no our share," I said plainly. "I've already made arrangements." Helen's whole expression changed. Her smirk vanished. "Excuse me?" Fred jumped in. "Mom, we took you in. We've cared for you." "No," I said. "You tolerated me. There's a difference." I let that sink in. For once, they were both quiet. "I'm moving out this week," I added. "Friday, to be exact." Helen folded her arms. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious." Fred shook his head. "You're not even going to talk to us about it, about what makes sense for the family." "I've been silent for too long," I said, "and now that I finally have something of my own, I'm keeping it." Helen scoffed. "Unbelievable." "What's unbelievable," I said, "is that you think I owe you anything." Fred leaned forward. "It's not about owing, Mom. It's about doing the right thing." I stared right at him. Where was that energy when I was paying rent to sleep in a room I used to own? He looked away. The room stayed quiet for a few long seconds. You could have heard the refrigerator humming. "I'll be out by Friday," I said again. Helen picked up her fork and stabbed her pie. "Good. Maybe we can finally use that room for something useful." I stood up and pushed in my chair. "You already did," I said. "You used it to show me exactly who you are." I walked back to my room. My hands were steady, but my heart was heavy. Not because I was sad, but because I knew there was no going back after this. That night, after they'd gone to bed, I got to work. I took the folder from the bottom of my suitcase. Inside were copies of all my documents, the lottery confirmation, bank info, trust papers. I'd been keeping the original check and legal contracts in a locked box at the foot of my bed. I grabbed it all and slipped out. Yvette picked me up 2 blocks down. We didn't say much. I just handed her the folder, and she drove me to my lawyer's office. He had a safe installed in the back for clients who needed extra security. He didn't ask why I was dropping things off late at night. He just opened the door, logged the items, and locked them away. When I stepped outside, the sky was clear. Quiet. I looked up and whispered, "Almost done." By the end of the week, I'd be free. And Fred and Helen, they had no idea what was coming. The next afternoon, I came back to the house to finish packing. I'd left a few things in the closet and some boxes under the bed. Nothing big, but things I didn't want to leave behind. As I stepped inside, something felt off. The door was unlocked. I knew I'd locked it that morning when I left for my errands. I walked in slow. The air was still, but too quiet. Then I heard voices down the hall. Fred and Helen. I stopped at the doorway to my room. They were in there, both of them, with the closet wide open and the bed halfway unmade. My suitcase was open. Papers were on the floor. They didn't even flinch when they saw me. Fred straightened up. "Oh, hey, we're just helping you get organized before the move." Helen nodded, not even trying to act casual. "You had so much stuff in here. We figured we'd save you time." I walked in, calm but firm. "You had no right to go through my things." Fred gave me a look like I was the one being unreasonable. "Mom, come on. You're leaving Friday. We're just trying to get ahead of it." My eyes scanned the bed, the floor, the table. That's when I saw what was missing. The green folder. The one with my extra copies of the lottery paperwork and bank info. It had been sitting under a stack of books by my chair. Gone. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at both of them. Fred must have noticed. His voice dropped a little. "Whatever you're worried about, you don't need it. We're family. You'll do the right thing." Helen stepped in. "And if you don't, well, we'll have to talk to someone. Legally." That got my attention. "You're threatening me?" I asked, calm as ever. Helen crossed her arms. "We're just saying you shouldn't make this harder than it needs to be. You wouldn't even have this money if it wasn't for our support these past years." I stared at her. Support. Fred raised his voice a little. "You've been living in our house. We've paid your bills. You owe us, whether you want to admit it or not." I stepped back, leaned against the wall. "They really believed that. You do realize," I said, "that I gave you this house. Paid off. You didn't lift a finger for it." Fred looked away. Helen didn't budge. "You're playing with fire, Agnes," she said. "You're not thinking clearly." I looked her dead in the eye. "I'm thinking clearer than I have in years." Neither of them said a word after that. I didn't waste time. I walked out, called Yvette, and told her I needed to come over. She was already setting out the guest sheets by the time I got there. She opened the door, and I stepped inside without a word. I dropped my purse on the chair, sat down, and exhaled. "They were in my room," I said, digging through everything. Yvette handed me a glass of water. "Did they take anything?" "They took the folder," I said, "the one with the copies. Not the real stuff, but enough to make trouble." She shook her head. "That's not just disrespect. That's a line crossed." I nodded. "They're going to try something. I just know it. I didn't have proof yet, but I could feel it. They weren't going to let this go. Not without a fight." I came back early the next morning to get the last of my things. A few boxes, some old photo albums, and my winter coat. I didn't want to be there long. The front door was cracked open. I stepped in slowly. The house was too quiet. Then I smelled it. Smoke. Not heavy, but sharp, like burned paper. I rushed down the hall. My door was half open. Inside, the air was hazy. The trash can in the corner was still letting off thin wisps of smoke. Gray bits of paper floated at the edge. I didn't need to look close. I already knew. The folder, the check copy, the backup documents. Gone. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just stood there for a moment, looking at the mess. Then I heard footsteps. Helen stepped into the room like nothing was wrong. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe. "Now maybe we can talk like family," she said. I didn't move. Fred showed up behind her a second later. He looked uneasy, tried to soften the mood. "This wasn't about hurting you," he said. "It was just a wake-up call. You scared us, Mom. You're making decisions that affect all of us." I turned around slowly and faced them. Helen raised her chin. "You've been acting selfish. All this sneaking around. We had to do something." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I walked to the nightstand and picked up my phone. "I want you both to see something," I said. I pulled up the email from my lawyer, the one that confirmed the real check was already secured, and the funds were held in escrow. I held the screen out toward them. "You burned a souvenir," I said. "That wasn't the real check, just a ceremonial one. For photos. The actual money already moved, already protected, already gone." Helen's face went blank. Fred stared at the screen. "You're lying," she said, but her voice wasn't strong. I looked her in the eye. "I'm not." Fred stepped forward. "We were trying to get your attention. That's all. You shut us out. What did you expect?" "I expected respect," I said. "What I got was trespassing and destruction of property." Helen scoffed. "You wouldn't call the police. You'd never do that to your own family." I stepped past her and opened the front door. "You can leave now," I said, "or I can make a call and let them sort it out." Fred hesitated. "Come on, Mom." "I'm done talking," I said. "You made your choice the moment you lit that fire." Helen didn't say another word. She brushed past me, her jaw tight. Fred followed her, but not before glancing back at the trash can. The last bit of smoke curled up from the ashes. After they were gone, I walked back into the room. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shocked. I felt free. They thought they could scare me, control me, force my hand. But they were too late. Every document that mattered was safe in my lawyer's hands. Every dollar was where it belonged. The check they burned, it was for show, for memory. And now, the memory would serve a new purpose, a reminder of what not to allow. I picked up the trash can, dumped the ashes in a bag, and took it outside. That part of my life, it was already over. The smile came naturally, not out of joy, but out of knowing I'd won. And they didn't even know the half of it yet. By the time Friday rolled around, the moving truck was loaded, the keys were returned, and I was on my way to Santa Fe. Yvette followed behind me in her car, hauling the last few boxes I didn't want to trust to strangers. The sun was out, but not too hot, and the roads were clear. When we pulled into the senior community, Millie was waiting with a clipboard and a smile. "You're all set, Miss Jones," she said, handing me my new keys. "Unit 3C, corner lot, morning light on the patio." Inside, the walls were freshly painted, and the floors didn't creak with every step. The place smelled like lemon oil and quiet. It was mine. All of it. I didn't bring much furniture, but that was fine. A table, a bed, a chair by the window. More than enough. That first night, I slept through without waking once. No voices in the hallway, no tension in the air, just peace. The next morning, I had a man from a security company install cameras outside my front and back doors. I also had the locks changed, just in case. Then I sat down at the small kitchen table and pulled out my phone. I blocked Fred's number, then Helen's. I didn't want to hear their voices, see their names, or read another guilt-filled message. But blocking numbers doesn't stop everything. A few hours later, I got a message through the community's online portal. Fred had somehow found it. "You've cut us off. You're destroying this family." I stared at the screen, then hit report and moved on. The next morning, I checked my email and saw a long message from Helen, full of empty threats. Something about lawyers and rights and undue influence. I didn't respond. I just forwarded it to my lawyer, He called me later that day. "Let me handle them from now on," he said. "You've done everything by the book." That was all I needed to hear. With the house settled and the noise behind me, I turned my attention to something that actually mattered. I met with my financial advisor, the same kind woman who helped me set everything up after the win. We sat across from each other at her office in town. "I want to use some of this money to do something good," I said. "Something that'll actually help people." She nodded. "Have anything in mind?" I did. There's a women's shelter in Albuquerque I'd heard about from a friend at church. Always in need, always doing quiet work, and a local high school not far from my old neighborhood. I remembered how many kids came out of there without knowing the first thing about budgeting or credit. "I want to help both," I said. So we did. We set up a small charitable trust and made 2 donations, one to the shelter and one to fund a financial literacy program at the high school. It wasn't flashy. No plaques. No announcements. Just money moved where it mattered. That night, I sat on my new patio with a cup of tea and watched the sun go down behind the hills. I didn't feel rich. I felt steady, like I could finally breathe. 1 week into my new life, I checked my mailbox. There was a plain white envelope inside. No name, no return address. The handwriting was sloppy. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. I could feel what it was. I slid it into a manila folder and brought it to my lawyer the next morning. "I got this," I said. He opened it and read it quietly. "You'll regret this," it said. That was all. He looked up. "We'll keep it on file," he said. "Let me know if anything else shows up." I nodded. Then I walked out, got in my car, and went home. And I didn't think about it again, because I knew exactly what I was doing, and I didn't regret a single thing. A few months passed. The days settled into a rhythm I hadn't known in years. I woke up when I wanted. I took long walks through the trails near my place. I made real breakfast again: eggs, toast, fresh coffee. Not just something quick before stepping around other people's moods. One afternoon, I got a call from Rita, an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. We'd worked together at the post office. "I heard you moved," she said. We met up for lunch the next week. Then another friend reached out. Then another. Before long, I had a little circle again. We talked about things that mattered: aging, letting go, how to start again when you're not young anymore but still have fire in you. I picked up painting again too. Just watercolors, nothing fancy. I set up a little table by the patio door where the sun hits just right in the morning. And then came Charlie. He's a rescue dog, 7 years old, part shepherd, part who knows what. A volunteer from the shelter asked if I'd be willing to foster him. I said I'd try it for a week. 3 days in, he was curled up at my feet, like we'd been together forever. We kept each other company. Still do. Now and then, I'd hear things through old neighbors or mutual friends. Little bits about Fred and Helen. They'd refinanced the house, maxed out credit cards. The business Helen had been trying to grow never took off. Fred's hours got cut at work. They filed for bankruptcy. I didn't smile when I heard it. I didn't wish it on them. But I didn't feel sorry either. Choices catch up eventually. My lawyer asked if I wanted to press charges for what they'd done, burning my property, going through my room, threatening me. I told him no. That would be giving them too much of my energy. I said. He nodded and said, "That's a very grown-up answer." "I've had time to grow," I told him. He smiled. Around that time, I started something small, a little group that met once a month at the library. Just older women like me. We'd sit around a table and talk about setting boundaries, about late life choices, about how hard it is to be the strong one and still feel invisible. We didn't fix each other. We just listened. And that was enough. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, I checked my mail and found a letter. No return address, but I knew that handwriting. It was Fred's. I opened it inside, sitting at my kitchen table, with Charlie resting at my feet. It was short, just a few lines. Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was selfish. I miss you. I don't blame you if you never speak to me again. I just wanted you to know I understand now. Fred. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. There's a label on the front that says, maybe one day. That was enough for me. Some people change. Some just want to feel better about what they've done. Either way, I had my life now. No more shouting. No more guilt. No more walking on eggshells. That evening, I wrote in my journal. They burned a fake check thinking it would ruin me. But I'd already cashed in something more valuable, my freedom. And I meant every word. It wasn't the money that saved me. It was the choice. The decision to walk away. To stop trying to earn kindness. I didn't get everything back. But I got myself back. And if that's not winning, I don't know what is. Thank you for sticking with me through this story. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from people you love to protect yourself? Did they make you feel guilty for choosing peace? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening. Your story matters too. And if this spoke to you in any way, go ahead and hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more real stories just like this one.